November 25th, 2020. For a moment, the entire world of football in Buenos Aires, people barged into the streets. In Naples, grown men cried openly in front of murals. In stadiums across the world, matches stopped for a minute of silence. Not for a king, not for a president, for a footballer. But Diego Armando Maradona was never just a footballer. He was chaos and genius, a rebel and a hero. A boy from the slums who climbed to the very top of the world. He scored the most controversial goal in football history. Just for minutes later, he scored the most beautiful goal football has ever seen to moments, for minutes apart. Together they defined the legend of Maradona, but to understand Diego, you have to go back to the dust streets, or back to poverty. Back to a small neighborhood where dreams were the only thing children could afford, because before the fame, before the controversies, before the world knew his name, there was simply a boy and a football. October 30th, 1960. In a poor neighborhood on the outskirts of Buenos Aires called Villa Fiorito, a child was born into a family that had almost nothing. The house had no proper floor. Sometimes there wasn't enough food. Clean drinking water was considered a luxury. Diego Armando Maradona was the fifth of 8 children. His father, Don Diego, woke up at 4 in the morning every day to work in a factory. His mother, Dona Tota, spent her days trying to feed a large family with almost nothing. Years later, Maradona would say something that perfectly described those days. My mother could stretch a meal like nobody else in the world. Sometimes she would pretend she had already eaten, just so her children could have a little more. But in that tiny house, in that forgotten corner of Argentina, something extraordinary was growing. Because the small boy named Diego had already found something that would change his life forever. Football, for Diego the ball wasn't toy, it was escape. It was hope, it was freedom. Neighbors would often see the little boy dribbling a worn-out ball for hours in the street. Sometimes barefoot, sometimes in shoes too big for him, but always with the same focus. Even as a child, Diego treated the ball like it was part of his body. People began to notice. One of his childhood friends later said, he didn't run with the ball ran with him. By the age of 10, Diego's life would change forever. One afternoon, while playing in a youth match, a local talent scout stopped and watched. At first, he thought it was just another street kid playing football. But after a few minutes, he realized something strange. This boy wasn't just playing, he was dancing. The scout approached the coaches and asked a simple question. Who is that kid? That kid was Diego Maradona. Soon he joined a youth team called Los Cebollitas. The junior team connected to Argentinos Juniors, and what happened next sounded almost impossible. The team went 136 matches unbeaten. At halftime during games, fans didn't go to buy food. They stayed in their seats. Because a small boy with curly hair would walk onto the field and begin juggling the ball. Thousands of people watched as the ball seemed glued to his feet, behind his back, on his head, on his shoulders. The crowd cheered every touch. Diego was only 12 years old. But Argentina already had a new wonder kid. The newspapers started calling him something special. El Pibe de Oro, the Golden Boy. At just 15 years old, Diego Maradona made his professional debut for Argentinos Juniors. He was still a teenager. But when he touched the ball, something magical happened. Defenders couldn't stop him. Fans couldn't believe him. And journalists couldn't explain him. Between 1976 and 1981, Maradona scored 115 goals in 167 matches. Argentina had found its next superstar. But Diego wasn't thinking about fame. He had one simple dream: to buy his mother a house. Years later, he remembered the moment he told her, "Mom, one day I will buy you the house you deserve." That promise would drive him for the rest of his life, and soon, the biggest clubs in the world would come calling. In Argentina, football is more than a sport. It is identity. It's pride. And for millions of people, one club represents that pride more than any other: Boca Juniors. For Diego Maradona, Boca wasn't just a team he admired, it was the dream. Growing up in Villa Fiorito, Diego listened to Boca matches on the radio with his father. When Boca scored, the neighborhood exploded with joy. So, when Boca Juniors finally made an offer in 1981, Diego didn't hesitate. This wasn't just a transfer, it was destiny. When Maradona arrived at La Bombonera, the legendary Boca Stadium, tens of thousands of fans welcomed him like a returning hero. He was only 20 years old. But already, Argentina believed he could become the greatest player the country had ever seen. And Diego didn't disappoint. With his dazzling dribbles, fearless attitude, and impossible goals, he quickly became the heart of the team. In his first season, Boca Juniors won the Argentine League title. La Bombonera became a theater of magic. Fans didn't just watch football. They watched Maradona perform. But Diego's brilliance was becoming too big for Argentina. Europe was watching, and Europe had money. A lot of money. Soon, the young star from Villa Fiorito would become the most expensive footballer on the planet. In 1982, after the FIFA World Cup, a Spanish giant made its move, Barcelona. The transfer fee shocked the football world. Around $7.6 million, a world record at the time. For Diego, Europe was supposed to be the next chapter of greatness. But the dream quickly turned into a nightmare. Spanish football in the early 1980s was brutal. Defenders didn't just try to stop Maradona. They tried to destroy him, and in 1983, disaster struck. During a match against Athletic Bilbao, defender Andoni Goicoechea made a horrific tackle. The result was devastating. Maradona's ankle was shattered. For a moment, the world feared the worst. Was the career of the greatest young talent in football already over? Doctors said recovery would take months. Some believed he would never return the same. But Diego Maradona was never normal. Months later, he returned, still brilliant, still unstoppable. But the tension in Barcelona was growing. There were conflicts with club directors, arguments with teammates, and pressure from the media that followed him everywhere. The breaking point came in 1984, during the Copa del Rey final against Athletic Bilbao. A violent brawl erupted on the pitch. Players kicked, fans threw objects, and Maradona, furious, launched a flying kick at an opponent. It was chaos. Within weeks, Barcelona decided it was time for Diego to leave. But what happened next would become one of the most important transfers in football history, because the club that bought him next was not a giant. It was a struggling team from southern Italy, a team that had never truly conquered Italian football. That team was Napoli. When Maradona arrived in Naples in 1984, many people thought the transfer made no sense. Why would the most talented footballer in the world join a team that had never won the Italian league? The answer was simple. Naples and Diego understood each other. Naples was poor. Naples was proud. Naples was often mocked by the richer northern cities of Italy. To them, Neapolitans were outsiders, inferior. But Diego came from Villa Fiorito. He knew what it meant to be looked down upon. So, when he stepped into Stadio San Paolo for the first time, something incredible happened. More than 80,000 fans filled the stadium just to welcome him. No match, no game. Just Diego. Fans waved flags. People cried. They believed a miracle had arrived, and in many ways, had. Because what Maradona did in Naples changed football history. Before Maradona, Napoli was a mediocre team. After Maradona, Napoli became champions. In 1987, Napoli won the Serie A title for the first time in their history. The city exploded in celebration. Murals of Maradona appeared everywhere. Churches placed his image next to saints. Some fans even created a strange unofficial religion, the Church of Maradona. To them, Diego wasn't just a footballer, he was a symbol. Proof that the poor could defeat the powerful. Proof that the South could beat the North. And under Maradona's leadership, Napoli kept winning at another Serie A title, an Italian Cup, and in 1989, the UEFA Cup. Naples had a king. His name was Diego Armando Maradona. But while the city worshipped him, dark clouds were beginning to gather. Because fame has a price, And Diego was about to discover just how heavy that price could be before the controversies, before the scandals, before the fall. There was Mexico 1986, the World Cup that would turn Maradona into a legend. From the very first match, something felt different. Diego wasn't just playing well. He was dominating the entire tournament. He scored. He assisted. He controlled matches like a chess master controlling pieces on a board. Opponents tried everything, fouls, but aggression, not double marking. Nothing worked. Argentina marched through the tournament with growing confidence. And then came the match that would change football history forever. Da Argentina versus England, June at 6. Estádio Azteca 100 spectators. What happened that day would become the most famous for minutes in football history. June 22nd, 1986, Mexico City, the Estadio Azteca. More than 114,000 people filled the stadium that afternoon. But this match was more than football. For years earlier, Argentina and the United Kingdom had fought a brief but painful conflict, the Falklands War. The wounds were still fresh. For many Argentinians, this was not just a quarterfinal. It was something deeper, something emotional, something symbolic. On the pitch, however, there was one man who seemed completely calm: Diego Maradona. From the first minute, England players surrounded him. They kicked him. They pushed him. They tried to stop him with pure physical force, but Diego kept moving, dribbling, turning up, dancing through tackles. The first half ended 0-0, but the tension in the stadium was rising. Everyone felt that something was about to happen. And then, in the 51st minute, chaos unfolded. A loose ball bounced into the English penalty area. Maradona chased it, so did England goalkeeper Peter Shilton. Shilton was much taller, nearly 20 centimeters taller than Diego. In a normal situation, there was no way Maradona could reach the ball first, but Diego jumped. At the same moment, his left hand moved slightly upward, just enough, just fast enough. The ball touched his hand and went into the net. For a moment, everything froze. England players immediately raised their arms. They were shouting, protesting. The goalkeeper was furious, but the referee looked toward the linesman. The linesman said nothing. The referee pointed to the center circle. Goal, Argentina 1, England 0. Maradona began celebrating. Later, he would describe the moment with a sentence that would become immortal. A little with the head of Maradona, and a little with the hand of God. The phrase became legendary, the hand of God. But the story of that match was far from finished. Because just for minutes later, Maradona would do something that no one had ever seen before. Something that would become known as the goal of the century. 54th minute, Argentina already leading 1-0. Maradona received the ball in his own half, near the halfway line. At first, nothing looked special. An English midfielder moved toward him. Diego turned his body and slipped past him. Then another defender approached. Maradona accelerated. A quick touch. Another defender beaten. Now, the stadium began to feel the electricity. People were standing up watching, holding their breath. Maradona kept running, and another defender came. He dribbled past him, then another. Now he was entering the penalty area. The English defenders were desperate. They tried to block him, but Diego kept the ball glued to his left foot. The goalkeeper rushed forward. One last obstacle. Maradona feinted, the goalkeeper fell. Diego tapped the ball into the net. Goal. The stadium exploded. Even commentators around the world were screaming in disbelief. 5 defenders. 60 meters. 10 seconds of pure magic. The commentator's voice echoed forever in football history. Maradona, Maradona, Maradona. Goal, goal, goal. Years later, FIFA would officially name it the goal of the century. 2 goals. For minutes apart. One controversial. One perfect. Together, they created the myth of Diego Maradona. Argentina would go on to win the match 2-1. But the tournament was not over yet. Maradona still had work to do. After eliminating England, Argentina faced Belgium in the semifinal. Once again, Maradona was unstoppable. He scored 2 beautiful goals, leading Argentina to the final. Now, only one opponent stood between Argentina and the World Cup: West Germany. The final took place once again at Estadio Azteca. June 29, 1986. The world was watching. More than 1 billion people. Argentina took an early lead, then another. The score became 2-0. But Germany refused to surrender. They scored once, then again. 2-2. Suddenly, the final was wide open. The tension in the stadium was unbearable, but in the 84th minute, Maradona touched the ball. Just once, a perfectly timed pass split the German defense. His teammate Jorge Barrichaga ran onto the ball and scored. Argentina 3, Germany 2. The referee blew the final whistle. Argentina were world champions. And Diego Maradona had just delivered the greatest individual World Cup performance in history. He finished the tournament with 5 goals, 5 assists, countless unforgettable moments. But numbers couldn't explain what people had just witnessed. Maradona didn't simply win the World Cup. He controlled it. Every match, every attack, every moment. At just 25 years old, Diego Maradona had reached the very top of football, 2 million people around the world. He was now the greatest player alive. But the problem with reaching the top is that there is only one direction left to go down. And the next chapter of Maradona's life would prove that even legends can fall. By the late 1980s, Diego Maradona had everything a human being could dream of: fame, money, power. Millions of fans who worshipped him like a god. In Naples, murals of his face covered the city walls. Children wore his number 10 shirt. Churches even placed his image next to religious icons. To the people of Naples, Diego was not just a football player. He was their hero, their revenge against the powerful clubs of northern Italy, their proof that the poor could win. But living as a god has a price, and slowly, quietly, that price began to destroy Diego Maradona. The pressure never stopped. Everywhere he went, thousands of people followed him, journalists chased him, fans surrounded him. He couldn't walk in the streets without chaos. Freedom, the one thing Diego had known as a child playing in the streets of Villa Fiorito, was gone. And when freedom disappears, people often search for escape. For Maradona, that escape became cocaine. During his years in Naples, rumors began spreading about Diego's personal life: late-night parties, dangerous friendships, connections with powerful figures from the Camorra, the Neapolitan mafia. At first, the public ignored the rumors, because on the field, Maradona was still performing miracles. Napoli continued winning, fans continued celebrating. But behind the scenes, Diego's life was becoming increasingly chaotic. He barely slept. He partied through the night. His body was slowly breaking down. And eventually, the truth caught up with him. In 1991, after a match, Maradona failed a drug test. The result was devastating. He tested positive for cocaine. Italian football authorities reacted immediately. Maradona was suspended from football for 15 months. For the first time in his career, Diego Maradona was forced to stop playing the game that had defined his entire life. Naples, the city that once worshipped him, suddenly turned cold. The hero had fallen. After the suspension, Maradona's relationship with Napoli was beyond repair. The city that once loved him now felt betrayed. Fans who once sang his name began to insult him. Murals faded. The King of Naples had lost his crown. In 1992, Maradona left Italy. He joined the Spanish club Sevilla, hoping to rebuild his career. But something had changed. The speed, the magic, the unstoppable energy that once defined him was fading. He played only one season in Spain. Then he returned to Argentina, signing for Newell's Old Boys. But injuries and fitness problems followed him everywhere. Still, Diego had one final dream: the 1994 World Cup in the United States. He wanted redemption. One last chance to show the world he was still Maradona. And at first, it looked like he might succeed. During the group stage of the 1994 World Cup, Maradona looked reborn. He scored a spectacular goal against Greece. After scoring, he ran directly toward the camera, screaming with wild intensity, his eyes widging, his face full of emotion. It was one of the most unforgettable celebrations in World Cup history. For a moment, it felt like the old Diego was back, the genius, the magician, the unstoppable number 10. But only days later, the nightmare returned. After Argentina's match against Nigeria, Maradona was selected for a routine doping test. The results shocked the world. He tested positive for ephedrine, a banned stimulant. This time, there was no escape. FIFA expelled him from the tournament. His World Cup was over. His international career was over. And perhaps his legend was over too. A famous image from that day shows Maradona being escorted off the field by a nurse, smiling. But behind that smile was something deeper. The realization that the world he once ruled was slipping away. After the World Cup scandal, many believed Maradona would retire. But Diego was never the type to quit easily. In 1995, he returned to the club he loved most, Boca Juniors. The same stadium where he had once been a young hero now welcomed him back as a living legend, La Bombonera roared once again. Even though he was no longer the unstoppable player of the 1980s, fans didn't care. They just wanted to see him play one more time, one more dribble, one more puff magic. In 1997, on his 37th birthday, Diego Armando Maradona finally announced his retirement from professional football. The boy from Villa Fiorito had completed his journey, but his story was far from over. Retirement was not easy for Diego. Without football, he struggled to find balance. His weight increased. His health began to decline, at heart problems, hospitalizations, more battles with addiction, yet somehow Diego always found a way back into football. He worked as a coach, managing clubs in different countries. He even became the manager of the Argentina national team in 2008. For a brief moment, the legend returned to the World Cup stage, this time as a coach. But the magic of 1986 could never be repeated. Argentina was eliminated in the 2010 World Cup quarterfinal after a heavy defeat against Germany. Soon after, Maradona left the national team, but wherever he went, fans still treated him like a hero, because some legends never fade. They simply become myths. In the final years of his life, Diego remained one of the most recognizable figures on earth. His face was everywhere, murals, statues, documentaries, songs. For millions of people, he represented something larger than football. He represented hope. Hope that a poor child from the streets could conquer the world. But the years of excess had damaged his body. In November 2020, Maradona underwent brain surgery to remove a blood clot. The operation seemed successful. He returned home to recover, but his body had been through too much. On November 25, 2020, Diego Armando Maradona suffered a heart attack. He was 60 years old. When the news broke, the reaction was immediate. Argentina declared 3 days of national mourning. Thousands of people gathered in Buenos Aires. Fans cried openly in the streets. In Naples, people lit candles under his murals. Football stadiums around the world held moments of silence. Even his greatest rival, Pelé, said something that captured the feeling of millions. One day, I hope we will play football together in heaven. Diego Maradona was gone. But legends never truly disappear, because every time a child kicks a ball in the street, every time a player dribbles past 5 defenders, every time a football fan remembers that impossible goal in 1986, Diego lives again. The boy from Villa Fiorito, the king of Naples, the man who gave the world the hand of God. Goal of the century, Diego Armando Maradona. 1960-2020, not a flawed man, a football genius, and a legend who will live forever, even after the scandals, even after the controversies, even after everything that had happened. There was one place on earth where Diego Maradona would always remain untouchable: Naples. To understand why, you have to understand the city itself. For decades, Italy had been divided in more ways than one. The wealthy, industrial north, and the struggling, often ridiculed south. Cities like Milan, Turin, and Rome looked down on Naples. Fans from northern clubs mocked them. They called Neapolitans dirty, poor, inferior. When Napoli played away games in the north, banners appeared in stadiums saying things like, "Welcome to Italy," as if Naples wasn't even part of the country. But when Diego Maradona arrived in 1984, something changed forever. For the first time, someone had come who could fight back. Not with words, not with politics, but with football. And when Napoli began beating the rich northern clubs, the city exploded with pride. Juventus, AC Milan, Inter Milan. Teams with money, history, and power. But now, they had to face a small club led by a genius from the slums of Argentina. For the people of Naples, Maradona represented something bigger than sport. He was rebellion. He was justice. He was proof that the poor could rise. And that is why, even today, if you walk through Naples, you will see something extraordinary. Murals of Diego Maradona everywhere, on apartment buildings, on street corners, on old walls faded by time. Some are small, some are enormous, but they all say the same thing without words. Diego never left. But being loved by millions can also make you enemies, and Diego Maradona had many. Some were journalists, some were football officials, some were politicians. Because Maradona was never quiet, he spoke his mind. He criticized FIFA. He criticized powerful institutions. He defended poor people and developing countries. Sometimes his words made him a hero, other times they made him a target. One of his most famous quotes explained exactly how he saw himself. "When I wear the national team shirt, my heart beats differently." For Diego, playing for Argentina meant everything. And perhaps the most dramatic example of that came during the 1990 World Cup. The 1990 World Cup was held in Italy. Argentina advanced through the tournament once again, and in the semi-final, they faced Italy. But the location of the match made the situation extraordinary. The game would be played in Naples, Maradona's city. Suddenly, the entire country faced a strange question. Should Naples support Italy or support Maradona? In the days before the match, Diego made a controversial statement. He reminded the people of Naples how the rest of Italy treated them. He said, "For 364 days of the year, Italy treats you like outsiders. Now they ask you to support them." The comment caused outrage across the country, but in Naples, many people understood exactly what he meant. When the match began, the atmosphere in the stadium was tense. Argentina versus Italy, Naples versus the República. After a long battle, the match ended 1-1. The winner would be decided by penalties. Maradona stepped forward. Calm, focused, he scored. Argentina advanced to the final. Italy was eliminated on its own soil. Across the country, anger exploded. Many Italians blamed Maradona. But in Naples, he was still their king. For all the greatness, for all the controversy, for all the impossible goals, Diego Maradona was still human. And like many humans who rise to unbelievable heights, he struggled with the weight of his own legend. Imagine being recognized everywhere you go. Imagine never having privacy again. Imagine knowing that millions of people expect you to be perfect. Diego often said something very honest about his life. "I made mistakes, but the ball never betrayed me." Football was the one place where everything made sense to him. On the field, he felt freed away from it. He often felt lost. Friends came and went. Trust became difficult. The world around him grew larger and more chaotic. And sometimes, the only escape he could find was in self-destruction. Yet despite everything, despite the scandals, despite the criticism, people never stopped loving him. Because when fans looked at Maradona, they didn't just see a superstar. They saw someone real, someone flawed, someone who came from the same streets as them. In football history, many players have worn the team shirt, but Zidane, Ronaldinho, Messi. Yet for an entire generation of fans, there was only one true Armando, Diego Armando Maradona. Because when Diego wore that shirt, something magical happened. The number became more than just a number. It became a symbol, a symbol of creativity, of rebellion, of pure football joy. The children around the world tried to imitate him. They dribbled in small streets, in empty parking lots, on dusty fields, trying to recreate the magic of that moment in 1986 when he ran past 5 defenders. And somewhere, in those moments, Diego Maradona lives on. Years after his death, the debates continue. Was Maradona the greatest footballer ever? Or was it Pelé or Messi, or someone else? But the truth is, Maradona was something different. He wasn't just a great player. He was a story. A story of poverty, of genius, of triumph, of mistakes, of redemption, and perhaps that is why his legend feels so powerful. Because Diego's life was not perfect. It was messy, complicated, beautiful, just like football itself. In the end, all the fame, all the trophies, all the controversy fades away, and what remains is a simple image. A small boy in a poor neighborhood, barefooted, a ball at his feet, dreaming of something bigger. That boy was Diego Armando Maradona. And in many ways, he never stopped being that boy. Even when stadiums filled with 80,000 people, even when the whole world watched him play, even when history placed him among the greatest athletes who ever lived. Because deep inside, Diego was still playing the same game he loved as a child, just him and the ball. And maybe that is the real reason why the world will never forget him. Because football is more than a sport. It is joy, it is struggle, it is life. And for a brief moment in history, one man captured all of it. His name was Diego Armando Maradona.